Alright, multicam editing. Within this event called Multicam Training that I've created, I have all of my clips. They're subcategorized into some keyword collections. But what I want to do is take this clip here and this clip, which are two completely separate cameras, and I'm going to turn these into a multicam clip. So if I click on the first one and then hold down Shift and click on the second one, so I've got both clips selected. If I right click and select New Multicam Clip, I can then rename it. So we're going to call this Test Multicam Clip. We're going to make sure that this box is checked for Use Audio for Synchronization. I'm going to click OK. It's now going to analyze, and you can see in the speedometer here that it is still working on transcoding and analyzing it. Just hide that for now. And then over here you can see within our bin is a new multicam clip that's been created. If you look at the little quad box in the upper left hand corner, that signifies that it is a multicam clip. We're going to let this go ahead and analyze and get to 100%. And then we'll come back and show you the next steps of how to edit with it and pick your audio and change your camera angles. Alright, now that it is finished analyzing and transcoding, we're going to go ahead and create a new timeline or project. Now we've got a blank timeline. Here's our multicam clip here. There's two things you can do. You can edit directly from the single camera shot here, so we can still mark our ins and our outs exactly how we wanted it. Or we can open up Shift Command 7, which will open up the multicam viewer, which right here will then show us both camera angles as they're both playing at the exact same time. There's a neat little setting under here to show time code, so that it will show the time code of each individual clip as it's running. So let's double click on the clip in our bin here, which will open it up in a separate project timeline, so that we can make sure that the actual sync took place correctly with the audio. So as I can see here, I've gone in front of the camera so that I can do a physical clap and we can watch it happen at the exact same time. So that shows us that back and forth that it found that peak in the audio and then it is completely synced together. Now this project or timeline here, if it did mess up the actual sync, we could actually grab and click on the actual clips and drag them back and forth to get them to line up perfectly. That's sometimes possible when it's too noisy and the Final Cut can't see the actual peak. So we can back right out of here and go back to our original timeline, because that one there just shows us the multicam. So up on our clip here, we can pick our in point, let it play, and set our out point. We're going to drop that down to the timeline. As you can see, it still has the quad box on the clip. So now if we play our timeline back with the multicam viewer open, we can still see the different shots. I recommend changing the audio first before you get into changing the video sections. So if we select the clip on the timeline, go to our audio tab in our inspector, here we'll see the two camera angles. Right now the 510G, which is my main JVC camera, is selected, and then there's the GoPro angle. Both of my microphones are set into the main JVC camera, so under channel configurations, normally I would want split stereo or dual mono, but because of the multicam clip, I've got to turn off this event clip layout. Once that's turned off, then I can select the appropriate audio setting that I want. If you're only going to use one channel of audio, say the primary microphone, you can use split stereo, and then you could turn off the natural sound. In this instance, and most instances with multicam clips, you're going to use both channels of audio because it's going to be like for an interview setting. So I'm going to select dual mono so that I can have both channels, channel 1 and channel 2, but I'm going to do a pan mode of stereo left-right. Since they're both primary audio, I'm going to send them to channel 1 or the left side. Down here on my timeline, if I expand my audio components, I can see that I have separate audio lines for channel 1 and channel 2. But when I play back the clip, you can look at the output meter. They're both going to go into channel 1. You can independently ride these up and down, holding down the Option key to create keyframes. So you can ramp the audio up and down as you need it. So once I've done my audio changes and everything's the way I need it to, now I'm going to worry about the video. So if this were a question at the very beginning, this middle button here in the multicam viewer is video only switching, so that any changes I made will not affect the audio that's selected. Because if I were to switch over to the GoPro shot with the video and audio selected, it would actually change the audio over to the audio that has that clip as well. So we're going to primarily use the video only settings. So for this first part of the interview, I want it to be the 2-shot. So park my playhead at the very beginning of the clip. A little blade tool, I'm just going to click on the GoPro shot, which will then change the entire clip on the timeline over to the 2-shot. Press spacebar, let's say right about here is where he responds. Now I want to cut back to his single camera shot. Click on it there, and now it'll do a cut, and it will then cut to seamlessly to his camera angle there as well. The audio stayed the same, so hopefully there's nothing else I need to do there. Nice part about this is if you want to dissolve, you can actually do a Command T or transition, and you can actually dissolve between the two cameras, because all the material from each camera angle is available on the timeline. I can delete the transition. If you mess it up and you decide, oh, you know what, I really want that to come in about a second earlier, I can click on that, and it gives me the double-sided trim arrow. I can just click and drag, and it'll drag back the point at which the camera changes from the 2-shot to the single shot. At the very end, if we wanted to get fancy and then we wanted to come back to the 2-shot, then we could come back to the 2-shot. And then for our GoPro shots, they tend to run a little bit, the exposure is not quite correct. So under the titling tool, under special is a thing called adjustment layer. You can put the adjustment layer over the top, trim it back to just the GoPro side of the clip. Command 7 will switch to the waveform monitor, but I'm going to want to go ahead and add in some color correcting and exposure correcting. So grab the color effect, and I'm going to drag it onto the adjustment layer, then select the adjustment layer. In my inspector under video is now the color board correction. Under exposure, I can go ahead and crush my blacks a few percent, about 6%. And then my exposure is a little, usually about 2 or 3% on highlights and midtones. GoPro also runs a little less saturated, so usually anywhere from 10, 12 up to 30% on the saturation. If you also needed to match the color a little bit, you could use the color correction. So now that that's looking a little closer to what was shot with my main camera, I can just Command C and copy the adjustment layer, park my playhead over the other GoPro, Command V and paste it, trim it back. Now it has the exact same properties that the first clip had. So once those render out, your clip is done.